Hey you guys, good morning. I am out for a walk. This morning was too perfect, and so I couldn't stay in the office. And now that it's getting hot, I may have to do these more in the morning. I like doing these posts in the morning. I might have to get something to hold that more steady. I'm sorry that it's going to be a little choppy because I'm walking. But I had some exciting thoughts. So yesterday I kind of watched some of the stuff with them starting to lift some of the restrictions that we have from all of this COVID-19 stuff, and so I was pretty excited, but at the same time, you get a little bit nervous. The other funny part, it's funny when you watch those Facebook live things because, or not the Facebook, but yeah, they were live, and you see everybody's comments, and they were all over the place. Some people were asking for the dates when it would start, and other people were trying to figure out, well, a lot of people were knocking it, saying, we still need to be locked up. They're jumping the gun too much. And so anyway, I thought of this funny story that happened to me. So when I was going to chiropractic school, they really requested that we not have a job while we were going to school because we were too busy. But some of us who needed a little extra money, we would work on the weekends, and a bunch of us worked as valets. And I worked for this company called August Evenings in St. Louis, and we would contract out, and we'd go out to all these different places, and we would work birthdays and weddings and bar mitzvahs and just all these different events. Well, anyway, one night, it was a pretty big job. I think it was, if I remember right, it was like a pre-wedding dinner. So it was like the night before the wedding, and there was a bunch of people coming, and it was being held in Forest Park in St. Louis. And Forest Park is just the most amazing place. And in Forest Park, it was at the History Museum. And the History Museum so we had this big loop that went all the way around the History Museum, and then kind of this parking lot area where they would come in, and it was a pretty big job. A lot of times we'd just have, I was the supervisor, and many times we'd just have 2 or maybe 3 runners. But in this particular job, we had like 6 or 7 runners, and so that meant that there was a lot of cars, a lot of people going to be coming. And so there we were, doing this job, and the cars would kind of loop around and then come to us, and we would get the cars and then run them, and we'd have to park them in Forest Park and then run back, and we'd have to kind of run through the woods a little bit and then come back and get another car, and it was just kind of this continuous flow. And so it was this crazy night, and everything was going. We'd gotten started. Well, all of a sudden, so in Forest Park, there's all these different museums and buildings, and there's also the zoo. And if you're familiar with the St. Louis Zoo, it's so amazing. You got to go. It's like the largest free zoo in the U.S. It's beautiful. And anyway, but these caretakers that are driving around Forest Park, they come to us and they say, hey, just an FYI, we wanted to let you guys know that some wolves have just escaped from the zoo. We don't know. We're trying to figure out where they're at, but we got people out looking for them. But we just wanted you to be aware of these wolves that are out there as you're running around. So, be mindful of it. Well, all of a sudden, it's just no one will work, right? So nobody's working. They're all standing there, and they're like, well, I'm not running. I'm not going to go out. There's wolves, and all these cars were starting to pile up, and it was crazy. I couldn't get anybody to work. They were all just like standing there, and I got it, right? Everyone was nervous and scared, but we all just stood there trying to figure out what to do. All the people were showing up, and it was starting to loop all the way around. And the bad part is that if the cars got all the way around the whole loop, we would be stuck. I don't know what we would have done. So we're sitting there, and I'm like, well, we've got to get these cars moving. Okay? So I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to get it moving. So I take a car, and I jump in, and I drive, and I park it, and now I have to run through the woods. And it was the craziest thing. You know, my mind played all sorts of games. I could have sworn there was a wolf chasing me. And I don't know that I've ever run so fast in my entire life. I was flying. I was like, no wolf is going to catch me, and I'm flying and just running as hard as I can. And I feel like I can hear these footsteps behind me. But I'm just flying, and I get there and I get back, and I'm like, you guys, I made it back. You guys need to grab it. And they still were like, no, we're not going. This is, it's not worth it. And the cars continue to come, and it was just madness. Well, all of a sudden, right at that moment, the zookeepers come up, and they're like, hey, we got the wolves. Everything is fine. And it was funny because, then, four of the 7 jumped in and started to take cars. But 3 of them were like, no, I'm too nervous. I don't, you know. And I look, as I reflected on that experience, I thought, you know, we're kind of stuck in this same thing. We've got some people who are like, I'm not going anywhere. This, you know, I'm scared for good reason, right? You got other people like me, and I don't think that I did the right. Like, you got people running, like scared, just nervous, and they're in their minds creating big problems too, and then you got other people who, even though it's starting to end, are like, well, I'm still nervous. I know that everything is, they say it's okay, but it's really not. So anyway, I just thought that was an interesting contrast, or a comparison to where we're at right now, trying to get back. You know, we've had this wolf that's been chasing us, or that's been out there, not necessarily chasing us. We don't even know where it was. For all we knew, they found it clear on the other side of Forest Park. But anyway, as I've reflected too, I thought, you know, if we just would have sat down for 2 seconds and worked together, all we would have had to do is say, we're going to have a shuttle, right? And as I've kind of sat down and thought, you know, cooler minds, I've thought, if I just would have said, listen, we've got 8 of us. I'll drive a shuttle. I'll pick you all up in this car, and then I'll shuttle you back. You don't have to even run through the woods. We could have kept everything going. We would have been fine. And it almost was a catastrophe. Like, I feel like our economy is at this spot where, okay, if we keep going, it's going to fill up the whole circle, and it will be a catastrophe. I hope it doesn't get to that point. But my point is, we've got to have a little bit of courage and a little bit of, you know, thinking. We've got to use our brains and work together and kind of say, okay, let's have whatever rules there are. Let's get these rules, but let's get this show on the road. Like, we've got to get things moving and take proper precautions. But if we work together, we're going to make this thing happen. Okay? And I don't think the wolf is going to get us. So, anyway, I'm optimistic. I'm excited for some of these restrictions to be lifted. I think we're doing it responsibly, and if we work together, it'll all work out. And I'm out on this beautiful walk again. Such a great day. You guys have a great